Hey guys, welcome to the greenhouse. Today I wanted to come on and talk a little bit about keeping my plants warm and how the care for my plants changes during the winter. So I do have an outdoor greenhouse, but it is attached to my house. Now that doesn't mean it's plumbed or that it has AC or heat, because it does not. It's just a lean-to, so it just attaches. My greenhouse is on the north side, so I don't get a ton of light during the day, which means the sun is not really helping to warm up my greenhouse. I do have grow lights, but what I use in the winter to warm up my greenhouse is this guy. I like to use a radiator. Hello, Christmas pajamas. I like to use a radiator. The reason is I do not recommend using anything with forced air. So like a regular space heater that's gonna blow hot air. The problem with that is, I'll show you an example, you're gonna end up with something like this happening. This is literally from where hot air was blowing on my squamiferum. Poor guy. And it was just for a little bit, like a couple minutes. So it's gonna cause the death of cells in your leaf. They're not used to that dry, hot air and they don't want it. So I use a radiator. This guy does not have any forced air. So there's vents, but the way that radiators work is that because they're hot, they naturally circulate cool air because heat rises, right? So the cool air does come into the radiator, get heated, and then it's released by the vents, but it's not forced, it's not pushed out. So if I put my hand here, I can feel it coming off of the radiator, but it doesn't feel like it's blowing on my hand, which is what we want. When you have a radiator in your greenhouse, you want to make sure you don't have anything hanging directly above it. If I had a plant hanging directly above it, that plant is going to be getting, well, it kind of looks like I do, but I promise I don't. It kind of looks like the radiator would be propelling that heat straight up, and that's exactly what's going to happen. So any plants that are just placed right above the radiator are going to get a direct shot of that heat, and that's not great. So we don't want that. In addition to heating with a radiator, or I know there's other methods, but I can't really attest to them because I haven't tried them. Some of the other methods that I've heard of, and you can let me know if you have experience with them because I would love to hear about it. Like the water barrels, people like to put a big barrel of water, especially if their greenhouse gets direct sun, because the sun will heat the greenhouse, which will heat the water, and then that water holds heat for a really long time. So it can even hold heat throughout the day and the night the next day. So it's kind of like your own like self-electricity-less heater. Okay, so yeah, let me know if you have experience with that because I would love to hear about it. Right here, I have my little Govey. Love this guy. You can connect your phone to these with the app, and they will show you, like, over time, the trends in your space, wherever it's at. So right now it's 73.9 degrees in here, and the humidity is down to 59%, which is not my favorite. I like it to be at least 70. So it is probably because I have the radiator on, and I'll just turn on the humidifier. Not that big of a deal. So in addition to heating your greenhouse, like I was gonna say earlier, you need to be able to insulate it, right? Because if you're not insulating the space that you're heating, you're just gonna have to continually heat it. And not only is that going to be really expensive, it's also just kind of wasteful and not great for the environment. So I'll show you what I did to the walls of my greenhouse. Now, just as I stand here and look at it, it looks fine to me. But in person, and if I get a little closer, you'll be able to see, oh, what's that? Yep, it's bubble wrap. So I have polycarbonate sheeting from, I believe this one is from Home Depot, but Lowe's carries it too, and they have different varieties that let a different amount of light in. This is just the clear. So I'm not losing a lot of light by putting the bubble wrap, but the way that I've done it is I've sandwiched bubble wrap in between the two panels. So I've got one panel attached to the greenhouse from the outside, and then I've put bubble wrap on top of that panel from the outside, and then another layer of polycarbonate. So I'm not sure really if the bubble wrap is doing a ton. I would imagine that it is, but it could also be just that I have the two layers of polycarbonate. The other part of insulating your space is sealing it. So I'm looking up here because I have this really ugly spray foam, okay? And it's not my favorite thing in the world. It's even uglier on this side because I haven't trimmed it or painted it. Let's see if I can, oh yeah, beautiful. Look at that work it. So it's really, really effective, the spray foam is, but of course there's a lot of work that goes into it if you want it to look nice. So you can also use silicone. Silicone I don't think is quite as insulating as the spray foam, so if you have a large area, silicone can be hard to work with. But I did use silicone on the spots where the panels come together, and they are overlapped. I don't know if you can see, they are overlapped, but I've also siliconed in this spot just to make sure there's no air coming through there or leaking out any hot air. You can also just kind of test your space by walking around slowly, standing in one spot, and just feel for a draft, right? When I stand by the door, I feel the draft. I know where it comes from. Okay, it comes from above the door. I haven't gotten there yet with my bubble wrap, so that's where it's coming from right now. But I did get this on Amazon. This is, what do they call it? It's like a draft reducer or something like that, and it seriously works because I do have a storm door. It has glass on the top and on the bottom, but where they come together and where they meet the door frame, there's a lot of gap. Okay, so this, and it's magnetic, it goes together like really, it's actually super satisfying. This does a really good job of keeping out draft, and it's basically like, I don't know, it feels like vinyl, like a shower curtain kind of. So it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it really, really, really works. So as far as keeping my space warm, that's what I do. My general goal is to trick my plants into believing that it is perpetually summer in here. That doesn't always work. As I look at my temperature readings over the past like week or so, I can tell that, okay, it is getting down to, I believe the lowest it's gotten is 59, which is pretty good considering it was 27 outside at the time that I saw that. So not crazy. I mean, I'm pretty confident about my heating and insulating abilities with that information, but that does affect the way I care for my plants. Okay, so I'll give you a couple of examples and hit a couple of kind of like big topics that you may have questions about. So one is gonna be where your plants are, right? So I have changed, for example, this little ledge in my greenhouse, which maybe you're thinking about your indoor space. You can think of this as like a windowsill, right? If you're indoors. And I have changed what species I keep on this little ledge. It's pretty much all Monstera deliciosa up there right now. The reason is because Monstera are actually pretty hardy and they're not going to just fall apart as soon as it gets cold. On the other hand, something like my Black Pagoda lipstick, I love this plant so much. Look, he's beautiful. He's beautiful. Something like this is going to be really sensitive to temperature changes. So if I had it hanging right next to the window all summer, then when it gets cooler and draftier, I am going to move it further from the window. So another example, let me think of one that I actually did move. Rhaphidophora tetrasperma can be surprisingly sensitive to cold. They start doing weird things with their leaves. I've had that happen a couple times to me where the leaves will start to turn like translucent. It's really strange. And I just had a friend message me about that as well. And I wondered if it was the same thing. So yes, let me see where we're at. Oh, okay, so placement. Yes, I changed the placement of my sensitive plants, just moving them away from any drafts or anything that's gonna cause them to just totally freak out. Okay, here's the other thing that I like to do. find yourself like a space within a space. You can do one of the small greenhouses, like on Amazon. They're kind of ugly though. I mean, I don't know. I don't like looking at them, so I don't want one in my house. What I found, my friend found, and was kind enough to alert me of, was my neighbors had this display case on the curb, and they were letting somebody just, it was out there just to take for free. So, of course, my husband and I grabbed our dolly, ran over there and asked them, is this really free? Can we have it? And I actually put my fish tank in it. So I've been able to track the temperature in this greenhouse for long enough to know that my temperature stays fairly consistent. But these guys, and I have some black skirt tetra in here, and they are producing lots of nice waste, which is being converted to nitrates so that the plants can take that up and use it for lovely energy, producing some roots for me. Oh my goodness, I just noticed one of the plants that I'm rooting has developed like some insane roots. I'll pull that out in a minute. Anyway, so this is, since I have the tank in here especially, you can use a diffuser, but I have the tank and the water is being heated for the fish. They have their little heater. Then I get really good humidity and really good temperature control in here. So I keep my cuttings in something like this. So sensitive plants we're keeping away from a draft, and cuttings we're really gonna baby them, right? I wanna make sure that my plants are using their energy on producing roots for me and not on trying to protect themselves from cold. Okay, so, and plants will, you might notice something like leaf drop. Plants will drop leaves to conserve energy if they're too cold. They may yellow first, so you may see some yellowing before leaf drop. Try not to let temperatures fluctuate too much for your plants. You want it to at least stay stable within like 10 degrees, which is actually a pretty good range. So like 60 to 80 degrees, that's pretty solid. If you can maintain that, you're gonna have happy plants. So here's my cuttings, and I just have to pull this one because I just noticed it, and it's gonna drive me crazy if I don't look and see first what it is and if these roots are even real. I think it's cebu. Oh my goodness, I don't think it's gonna come up out. Okay, so this is what I've been able to do in this environment within, I think it's been, no, this has been in here for about 2 weeks. This cutting I took, yeah, about 2 weeks ago. Hello. Hello, roots, all the roots. My goodness. Big fan of that. And then these were touching the water a little bit, so this part has started to root as well. So nice cebu cutting, just rooting away in there. And what I've done in here, just in case anybody's curious, is I took some of that diffusion crating stuff from Lowe's or Home Depot. It's in the lighting section, it diffuses light, but the holes in it are like the perfect size to just stick a cutting through so that the stem goes down into the water so that they can produce roots. So that's been really, really awesome experimenting with this, and it's working pretty well, and my fish are happy. Yay. Okay, so the next thing you might be wondering about is watering and fertilizing. You'll hear a lot of folks say, cut back on water during the winter, cut back. Generally, okay, I tend not to, like, I don't want to be a contrarian because I'm going to make a bunch of people mad, but I disagree to a pretty large extent, and here's why, okay? I don't really change my watering habits because I maintain my conditions. I put a lot of energy into maintaining warm temperatures and high humidity in this space. And so since their conditions aren't changing, there's no reason for their care to change. However, when you do have, like, say I was in my living room, and we'll just go pop inside. I'll show you my plants in there. There's not many right now. So I have this little shelf over here in my north facing window. So not only are these plants gonna get less light because there's less, daytime hours in the winter, but they're also going to be a little chillier because they are right up against the window. So for those plants, yes, I will water them less because they won't be using that water as much. So the less light that a plant is getting, the less that it needs to take up water with its roots. The other thing you want to think about is fertilizing. Now, I don't just stop fertilizing when winter hits. I stop fertilizing when I notice that it's not doing anything. You don't want excess nutrients in your soil. That's a surefire way to start some rot, and I don't want anybody to end up with that problem. But if you can maintain a weekly schedule, which is just pretty much every time you water, using a really diluted form of fertilizer, so cutting the recommended amount by like a lot, maybe using a quarter or a third of the recommended amount every time you water, that's going to be a lot safer for your plant and a lot easier for you to manage and remember. You know, if you just put a little bit every time you water, it's a lot easier to remember than, when's the last time I fertilized these plants? Should I fertilize it now? How much? I don't know, right? So weekly is what I go with, and I really don't change that until they show me that they don't need it or that they're slowing growth, right? If my alocasia dies back to a bulb, I'm not gonna fertilize it. It's clearly telling me, hey, like I'm chilling for the winter, leave me alone, right? But if they're pushing out growth, like look at this guy. And it's December, of course it's Texas, so, you know, not the case for everybody, but look at this guy. I just noticed today, this multiflora is pushing out a crazy beautiful peduncle with blooms, and I have not stopped fertilizing it. And since it's still showing me so much new growth, I probably will not stop fertilizing it anytime soon. So just remember that watering and fertilizing should change only if your conditions are changing as well. If you have any questions or comments or anything at all, leave them in the comment section below, and I will respond to each and every one of them. Bye, guys.